I think the framers and the leadership of Central Bank have done a commendable job. Tuwapige makofi jameni. I think we saw from the presentation here that this whole ecosystem will now be available on a digital platform, and we can all view it from where we will be, and you can be able to make decisions faster, much more accurately, and in a manner that leverages and gives everybody advantage to make the best decisions, because you will be armed with the most and the best available information for you to make the decisions for investment. To single out, what we are launching today has done, in my opinion, three very important things. Number one, we now reduce the opening of accounts, CSD accounts for that matter, from 14 days to a few minutes. I'm told 5 minutes. That is transformative. It has also given us an opportunity to digitize the whole of this space and to have a web-based, app-enabled mechanism of engaging with the whole space of our financial market, especially on the trading of treasury bills and treasury bonds. Let me also give you some feedback. You know, I have listened to the whole of this transaction. We had a conversation today in the morning, and I have a bit of feedback, which I am sure will enrich your thinking going into the future. I know, for example, that there is a requirement for one to have a bank account in Kenya. And on this, I am speaking to many Kenyans who do not have a bank account. I'm also speaking to many Kenyans in the diaspora, speaking for many Kenyans who are in the diaspora who may not necessarily have a Kenyan bank account. My advice and feedback to the team is that you need to make it possible for Kenyans who do not have a bank account but have an M-Pesa account to also participate in this space. I also want to ask the team to look at the possibility of Kenyans in the diaspora who may not necessarily have a Kenyan bank account to use their Visa or MasterCard or credit card accounts to be able to also participate in the purchase of government securities. This will expand the scope of participants. It will democratize this space even further and make it possible for a bigger majority of Kenyans and investors from both local and in the international space to participate in this endeavor. The concern, of course, is usually KYC. But I think, speaking from where I am and with the experience of the Financial Inclusion Fund, commonly known as the Hustler Fund, I think the KYC provided by telcos is solid enough for it to be relied upon as a mechanism of knowing who these people are. I also believe very strongly that credit card agencies have sufficient KYC information for us to be able to rely on them to facilitate this process. There is a case that I want to make for the people who do not necessarily want to work on 50,000, and I am I'm making a case for what we wanted to do with Emma Kiba before. The Emma Kiba did not go very far because it had many challenges. I am persuaded that it is possible for us to reduce the denomination. And I want the team to work on what is this denomination that can democratize that space so that the person you told us here, there is a person in Moyale. There was a reference to Moyale by somebody here. I suspect that that person in Moyale may not necessarily have the 50,000, but they could be having 5,000. And because there is no requirement now for them to travel to Nairobi and they can transact on their phone, there is absolutely no reason why we cannot facilitate that person in Moyale or indeed in any part of Kenya to have a transaction of 5,000. So again, we need a bit of democratizing that space and reducing the denomination of the available instruments, not necessarily in the region of 50,000 or 100,000, but I think the team should be able, Governor Thuge, to democratize that space. And I have seen how we lock out many people sometimes by working with big numbers. And let me give you an example. Just in the city of Nairobi, we have 2.1 million people who have borrowed from the Hustler Fund. 2.1 million people. And in Nairobi alone, we have lent something like 5.7 billion to very small people, in Nairobi alone. Nationally, we've lent about 35 billion. In a record 8-9 months, right? So if anybody underestimated the people in the small economy, as you may want to call it, you have to think again. And we have about 7 million people regular borrowing and paying in that space. We need to open up space for those people who are borrowing to also buy government paper. I don't know whether we still call it government paper now or the paper is out, you know. So to buy government security, right? So, and I have one other reason why I am pushing for these people. It is completely undemocratic for us who are in this space that one person has the opportunity to buy and to get 10% as they invest, and then another person can only invest and get 2%, because that's what majority of the people with 5,000, 10,000 get 2-3% from their savings. And yet, in the same space, we have those of us who have a bit more money, and we are getting 10-12% from government security. I think we need to make it possible for even the person who is currently being paid 2-3% to also move their fortunes to the space of 9-10%. I think it's only fair. And finally, one more feedback. And I hope I'm not going to torpedo the whole thing. It's only that I have to speak to the people who cannot make it to this forum. You know, there are so many people who cannot make it here, but they have hired me. So I am here to represent them. You know, many of them cannot come past the watchman at the gate. So we also need to, you need to think about the redemption mechanism. You know, I know we have the journey on how you can redeem your investment in this space. You need to democratize that also so that the smaller investors in that space can have much more flexible terms of redeeming their investment without the challenge that we experienced initially with Emakiba, that some of the people who invested in Emakiba ended up with, whenever they made certain decisions, they got less money than they had invested. We need to avoid that kind of thing. So we have to think, and I'm happy that Luz and team have told us that they are seized of that particular reality, and they are going to make some provisions or some decisions on making sure that that happens, and that we can carry as many people as possible along. It is the journey that we have undertaken that we need to democratize opportunity, whether it is employment, whether it is business, whether it is access to credit, whether it is access to being able to participate in government securities. We must be as inclusive as is practically possible, because that is the only way we can move together, and we can leverage on all our capacities, and we can leverage on every citizen of the Republic of Kenya to participate in baking a bigger cake for us to be able to enjoy together. Finally, let me undertake that we will continue to work with all the agencies in this financial space to make sure that we do not slip into spaces that will not add value to our progress. We will continue to do what we must do to keep inflation in check, to deploy whatever resources we can to make sure that we manage the cost of living, we manage the cost of food, and I am very happy that the interventions we have put in place are actually responding. We had an inflation rate of about 9.3 or thereabout. It's now down to 6.7. It is our intention to continue doing the interventions that will continue to take it down so that it is in line with our commitments, both to our budget and also all the other spaces that are there. We leveraged on technology to give us the data on farmers. For the first time, we distributed fertilizer using technology. Every farmer was on a technology platform to be able to access their fertilizer, and it has helped us to make it efficient, to eliminate brokers, to remove crooks, to remove middlemen that were creating unnecessary confusion, and that is why we have been able to manage the cost of fertilizer that is come down significantly from 6,000 plus to now about 2,500. I want to commit that we shall continue in making sure that there are interventions that would help us in that space. Never mind the chronic propagandists and those people who believe in voodoo, because they are telling us that, I don't know, there was some 30,000 tons of, I don't know, fertilizer from where. I want to tell you, we have deployed about 280,000 tons of fertilizer, about 4.5 million bags by now. And prudently, using data, using technology, we have delivered fertilizer efficiently. And we have used science. We did a survey of all our soils, and we have distributed fertilizer that is scientifically tailored for all the soils in the various regions and for the different groups in the different regions using science, not voodoo. So those who are telling us that we have sold, I don't know, sand, or is it soils? I don't know, they have sold what? It's because they believe in voodoo, we believe in science. There are two different areas. And we will continue to make sure that we use data, we use technology, we use science to continue to deal with the challenges of making sure that we manage inflation. I am very proud that we are moving in this direction, and Governor, I encourage you and your team. You have our support. And the feedback I have given you, I will come back in a month. I have an undertaking from Lusa. Where is he? I thought I saw him here. I have an undertaking from that man there that you will incorporate the feedback I have given you from the hustlers so that they too can participate in this very important exercise, and they can make their contribution and enjoy the benefits that come from trading and doing business with the government of Kenya, especially in this securities space. I want to also encourage the CMA. I see the CMA people here, and the NSC. I saw them speak around this issue. There is a lot that can be done in that space, and I am not seeing movement in that space, especially on the issues that we discussed when I came to Nairobi Securities Exchange. I know I have a part to keep, and that is to deliver some government companies for sale. I am working on it, but there is some homework also you need to work on. If you need feedback from me, I will write them down and send it to you, so that you can work on it, because building Kenya is a collective effort, and everybody must pull their weight so that we can take this forward. Thank you very much, good people. I now declare the DAO CSD officially launched. Congratulations.